1998, Ocarina of Time opens with a restless Link. 1991, A Link to the Past. Link is awoken by the voice of an imprisoned Princess Zelda. 2011, Skyward Sword. Link is dreaming and wakes up after falling out of bed. 2001, Wind Waker. Errol finds Link asleep atop a wooden lookout. The series has introduced Link as a sleeping hero in many Zelda games. But why? Is it simply a symbolic representation of the hero awakening to his potential? Sort of, but it's actually richer than that, pulling from the collective consciousness of real-world legends, and one, in particular, that has inspired the Zelda franchise since its inception. First, let's lay a bit of groundwork. By my count, 9 of the 20 mainline Zelda games start with Link sleeping, and an additional 5 incapacitate him in some way. While this is common in many Zelda games, the trope, while not introduced in the original, stems from the first game's inspirations. The original development team's objective was simple: to create a fairy tale adventure game. Shigeru Miyamoto, the mastermind behind the game, dreamed up the idea from his memories of exploring the hills, forests, and caves of his childhood home in Japan. Takashi Tezuka wrote the story and script, and blended Miyamoto's explorations with inspirations of his own from sources of high fantasy, like Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. And finally, Keiji Terui wrote the backstory found in the manual after being inspired by the conflicts of the medieval period. So how does this connect to a sleeping fairy boy? If we consider these sources all together, we find that a legend of this type already exists: the legend of King Arthur. Many parallels also exist between the two legends. King Arthur was originally a warrior knight, like our guy Link here. The Master Sword is the sword in the stone, or the later Excalibur. The Triforce is the sacred relic sought after by all, like the Holy Grail. A less obvious connection, and the one I like to train our attention on, is that Arthur is taken away to Avalon to sleep until the people of Britain need him. This familiar folklore trope is known as King Asleep in Mountain, or the Sleeping Hero.
He said it! He said it!
The features of this trope generally contain A, a legendary hero sleeping, and B, remote dwellings like mountaintops, islands, or supernatural worlds, and C, they are often a figure of military consequence, say a goddess's chosen knight. This trope has become attached to many mythological and actual figures across cultures in our own world. King Arthur and Merlin, Charlemagne, the Greek hero Theseus, Vlad the Impaler, Napoleon, Genghis Khan, and of course, John F. Kennedy. I'm sure there are others you can think of. Interestingly, in the Zelda universe, we know that the spirit of the hero reincarnates across time. So, when I said earlier that waking up in Zelda games was a symbolic way of depicting the hero's potential, that's partially true, but the full explanation is that the franchise is entwined with the story structure of many actual legends. The hero lies dormant under the mountain of time and wakes from sleep in each installment as the hero's spirit passes from one vessel to the next. He sleeps, like King Arthur, until the moment Hyrule needs him most. Traditionally, the beginning of a new game. The most obvious and the most one-to-one interpretation of this trope in the franchise occurs in Breath of the Wild, where the legendary hero literally slumbers beneath a literal mountain and awakens to refill his purpose, just when things are the most dire. Some would say this is representative of Breath of the Wild resuscitating the Zelda franchise as a whole. It is also interesting that in many of the sequel games, Link does not start off asleep, but instead is knocked unconscious. To me, this symbolizes the same hero crossing the threshold to a new quest, a lesser awakening, as the spirit of the hero still resides in the same Link, but his purpose between games changes. But it doesn't end there. The entire narrative of the Zelda franchise and even some of its more recent characters are built on these cultural and mythological structures. Find out more about them here.